Warning, the following podcast is a shit show, and the individuals you are about to meet are idiots. Their opinions, anecdotes, and advice contain zero nutritional value. This is the critical human condition and all of its strangeness. This is life, according to an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast.
Wait. Cue German music right now.
Okay, right now I'm going to add in some... What are German instruments? Accordion.
Yeah, the accordion.
You hear that? Are we in Berlin right now?
Guten Abend. Ich heiße Kaylee.
What?
Heißt Jeremy.
None of this was discussed before we turned the mics on, so...
Wir sind according to an idiot.
Oh, I think I know that one.
Guess who's German now? Me, bitch. All right, repeat after me, Jeremy. Ich heiße.
Ich heiße.
You're Jeremy, so say Jeremy.
Ich heiße Jeremy.
Yeah, ich heiße Kaylee.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
Wie geht's?
What'd you call me?
How are you, Jeremy?
I'm doing actually very good, because my birthday was yesterday.
Ooh.
I mean, that doesn't mean anything, because who knows when this episode will be up, but just know that at some point, my birthday was yesterday.
How was your birthday, Jeremy?
It was terrible.
Oh, no.
It was fine. It was good. I don't know.
I texted you. Did you appreciate my text?
I did appreciate the text, yeah.
Okay. If you, Jeremy, were a billionaire or a multiple millionaire, like approaching billions, at least 100 million.
Okay. I'm already anxious.
Yeah. If you had that much money, would you give the money to your friends? Like obviously you'd give it to your family, right?
Right.
But like your loyal best friends, would you say, hey, I see you're struggling there, buddy. Here's money.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah, totally. I'm not going to give you any money.
Jeremy, I need you to make it big so you can give me money.
Is this a scenario where I'm winning the lottery?
This is a scenario where you become extremely successful for what you do, which is nothing, but you get a lot of money for it, and you can dole out this money any way you want. You know, you're set for life, essentially. You don't have to do anything else.
I have this vision of me immediately forgetting where I came from.
Like you walk
like
into a restaurant and it's like, it smells too poor for me.
It's like, what is this? Where's the tuxedos, guys? I'm just gonna always wear a tuxedo. I'm gonna always drive around in a limo, but I'm gonna be driving my own limo. And then like I'm gonna pull up because I don't want to pay a butler to drive it, a chauffeur.
Right.
Excuse me. So I'm gonna drive to an event, and then I'm gonna crawl through that like divider between the cabin and the.
Yeah.
But when I get out, I'm still wearing the chauffeur cap.
It's a look now.
He's so humble. He doesn't want his chauffeur to feel insecure, so he wears the same outfit as him, and he also wears the same face as him because they saw me. I don't have tinted windows on my limousine. You can see right through it.
Yes, you can see you.
You can see me
going through the divider,
approaching in the limo. Then you can see my legs kicking as I crawl into the back cabin.
Out that last booger.
I'm assuming this is at a gala.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
You go to nothing less.
I'm going to celebrate my birthday every day.
Ooh.
At a gala. Surrounded by family and loved one constantly.
That sounds exhausting.
By a family and a loved one. I love one.
I am your loved one. I aspire to be.
Yeah.
I'm going to knock the current loved one out of their position and worm my way in. So then I can get your money.
Not going to happen. Because guess what? I put it in a trust. You know who that trust is for? My chauffeur. So when I die...
It goes to you.
It goes to me.
And then your chauffeur's trust says who?
It goes to his girlfriend in Canada. Who is actually him in a wig. So I fake my death multiple times, and then all of a sudden I'm some sort of widow in Canada. Right. I'm just living it up in Vancouver.
Or, you could have your girlfriend in Germany.
Oh boy, she's going to bring in some German. If I had a girlfriend in Germany, what do you think she would say?
Guten Morgen.
Yeah, I have a really hot girlfriend in Germany.
Yeah.
And one in Canada, and I'm also a chauffeur, and I'm also a millionaire. The thing is, I'm exhausted just from all the lives I've been living.
So what's the first thing you'd buy as Rich Jeremy?
That's tough, because I got to pay my chauffeur and my maid.
Well, that's the first thing you do? So
you got to make sure that your staff is getting paid. And my staff is just different versions of me in different outfits. I like to run around. No one's watching me. Like, there's no cover I'm trying to hold up.
Right.
I'm alone in my home, and I go, chauffeur. I call him chauffeur because he's very professional, because it's me, and I'm very professional.
And then you go in the other room, and you change really quick.
And I change really quick, and I run in, and I say, yes. I say, should he have an accent?
Yeah, you should. Guten Tag.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, man. My plot twist, my chauffeur is Jamaican born.
Right.
He's very charming, but he does have a very thick and almost undecipherable Jamaican accent.
Okay, off topic, really quick.
Yeah, well, that was already off topic.
So this last weekend,
yeah.
I saw my grandparents.
Okay.
This is a whole nother story, but basically my grandpa tells me really outrageous, strange stories. So I tend to try and avoid any topic of conversation because he will find a very strange story that will accompany
that's nice,
any
though.
thought. No.
That's cool.
No.
Oh, man,
Wait.
that's cool. I've never heard any stories about your grandparents.
For reasons. So this last weekend, he told me the story about when he was kids.
When he was kids. My grandfather was multiple children.
When he was a kid, him and his friend would go around and like lift up old dead logs and stuff and just grab these giant spiders. I forgot.
That's so badass.
They're called like wolf spiders or something.
Oh my god.
The really fucking massive ones.
Aren't those really bad for you?
Yeah, like the poisonous ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, he could be lying about this part, but who knows?
He did claim to be multiple children.
But he's also a veteran, so. So him and his friend catch all these like spiders, and they put them in a jar.
Good.
Right, and they're bored, so they decide to fill it up with water to drown them.
All right, it's checking out so far.
Yeah.
That sounds about right. I like that.
Yeah. So he's like giggling this entire time while he's telling me about how he's drowning these spiders. And he can see them squirming around in there.
I bet, yeah.
And trying to escape, and they can't. But it's like a few days and they don't die, and he's like annoyed with it.
Why aren't they dying?
I don't know.
Do spiders have lungs?
I don't know. I was concerned about that, but also concerned on my grandfather drowning spiders for fun.
Okay. Yeah. Well, finish your story, then I'll weigh in on this.
Yeah. So a few days go by, and the spiders are not dead. So he decides to let them out and then just stomp on them.
Well, hey, I mean, they're gonna die one way or another. Your grandfather is not a just God.
No.
He's pretty cruel. But I gotta say, I think it's just a young boy thing because I used to kill bugs all the time for fun.
Yeah, okay, killing bugs is one thing, but torturing them for days at a time and then killing them is also a whole nother matter. And having pleasure from watching them squirm around while drowning, I feel like is really kind of sadistic and weird.
You have to think of it from this perspective. He probably doesn't like spiders. Who does like spiders? If you like spiders, that's okay, but only kind of okay. You know what I mean? To anyone out there who like owns a pet tarantula, you're scary. I want you to know you're scary, but it's okay, I guess.
It's like I was telling him when I moved to Australia, and he got all excited.
Because he's like, I want to kill those new bugs.
Because there's like big spiders and big snakes and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, he's weird.
Yeah, he's like, ooh, yeah, they got big spiders there. You know,
he's getting all excited because he wants to kill them.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, well, I'd get those spiders. It's like... He may or may not be losing his mind.
Yeah, something's going on. First of all, thank you for your service. Second of all,
do you want to
what the fuck?
Do you want to hear a war story of his?
Yeah, what war was he in?
One of them. I don't know.
Multiple.
I'm assuming, one of them. Who knows?
Okay.
I have no idea.
How old is he? Do you know?
An age.
Oh my goodness!
Like
he's a man of mystery so
70 maybe. I have no idea.
You should really know this.
Here's the thing. I don't really know my grandparents that well, either side. So yeah, he was in a war and he is an age. He is old. He's like at least 70, I would say.
Okay.
Around there.
So probably Vietnam or maybe Korea?
Yeah.
He probably wasn't in Korea. He'd be older than.
Yeah, but he told me the story once. Keep in mind, my grandfather is basically a superhero, according to him.
Okay.
He was like fighting these guys, and there were like 5 on 1. You know, he's the one.
Yeah.
He kicks all of their asses. Okay. Right.
Does that mean he murders them? Because this is war.
No, he like punches them. Like they don't have any guns or anything. They're just like
war?
all fisticuffs.
Okay.
He runs into these guys and it's all fisticuffs and he knocks them all out and then he gets the last 2, right? He knocks out 3 and he has 2 left.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And there's like this big pole, like telephone pole or lamp pole or something.
Okay.
And he takes their 2 heads. You know, he has his hand on the back of their head.
Mm-hmm.
He has it for both of them.
And they're just letting them do that.
Yeah, they're so beaten up at this point they can't
Trained
resist.
soldiers, yes.
And so he smacks their head against the lamp pole one at a time. So like, bong, 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 bong. And he was like, that's great, Grandpa.
It sounds like your grandfather was not in a war, but rather a silent film. Like an old comedy.
I kind of want to understand. Like, I think these are all delusions he had.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm almost positive it's like a Three Stooges sketch.
Right.
That's
like, that
so
does not
bizarre.
sound like a thing that happens to people.
Like, I don't know, like, when was the last time a war really included hand-to-hand combat, where it's like, let's punch each other?
Let's just all punch.
Without guns or knives.
I don't know, maybe they showed up at a bar and they're like, you're on the other sad. And then they bang head against lampposts.
Yeah. It's always a bummer in war when, like, you go to a bar while you're in war, and there's bad guys from the war at the bar. You're like, God damn it, I just wanted to go to this
Korean?
bar.
Right, I'm American. We are fighting.
We're fighting now. God, I came here to get away from the war.
Right.
And it turns out the bad guys go to the same bar we do. God damn it.
This is a long detour when I originally just wanted to bring up
Your grandfather.
this story about George Clooney.
Oh my God. What? I want to know, like, how you were going to transition that if everything had gone well.
If everything had gone well and we didn't sidetrack. I was going to tell you about George Clooney. In 2013, he surprised 14 of his friends with $1 million each.
Oh.
They were friends who helped him before he became famous, and some of them were living paycheck to paycheck at the time. And he also paid for the taxes.
That's awesome.
Right?
So they actually got like definitely $1 million.
Right. Like he paid the taxes for it too, so they just got
That's pretty cool.
a ton of money.
I gotta say though, George Clooney could have afforded to give them more than $1 million.
Right, but also who has 14 friends? That's an outrageous amount of friends. Who has
That is a lot of friends. I think he's just bragging.
I had 14. Can you imagine being like the kind of good friend, you know, but didn't get the $1 million? And it's like, oh, thanks, George.
We were actually friends, George.
I guess he also had a condition that they all had to take the money or nobody would get it. So that way, like, they didn't feel guilty, like, taking money because then they were taking it so somebody else could get it too, kind of thing.
Okay.
You know, I was like, aw, George.
That's pretty cool. That's really cool.
That's a top-notch guy.
Yeah, I would like to do something like that if I ever get rich.
No, but you're going to pay your chauffeur. That's you.
Yeah, well, staff, the help comes first.
Yeah, I don't know. If I came into that much money, like lottery or anything really, I would put aside most of it. And then I would want to accumulate enough interest to where I could live off of it each year.
I think if you, honestly, if you just had 10 million to your name, you could live off that if you were just like careful with it for the rest of your life.
Let's say you had 10 million and you got, let's say, 2% interest over a year.
Okay.
If you stuck 10 million in a bank account, let's see. Say you get 1%, that's still $100,000. But if you invest it too, and that's like the T-bills and stuff are like investments technically.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So let's get back to the adventures of me and my chauffeur. My chauffeur comes in. I say, chauffeur, get in here. And then I leave the room, get dressed, and then get in there. And I say, yeah, man, what are we going to do today?
Okay, I'm going to segue into something. We did have a viewer question that we have just kind of ignored for a week. So we're going to answer it now since I feel the timing is ripe for this one. So we got a question from our beloved Kent, our #1 fan of this podcast.
I got to say,
Kent, I love you very much.
Thank you, Kent.
But he sent us a question. If you're having sex and there's a ghost in the room, does that make it a threesome? Mm-hmm. And what are your thoughts here on this, Jeremy?
I think, okay, as we both know, there's two main schools of thought behind hauntings.
Yes.
We're talking about like an OG original ghost.
I'm agreeing before I know these two.
So there's residual haunting.
Okay, yeah.
And then there's
like an active?
let's call it active. I can't remember the actual term. Residual is a lady died in the house and she always used to walk around in the halls. So now people say they see her walking around in the halls. But like an active haunting is a woman died in the house and she's waking you up at night yelling at you. Like that's something freaky like that.
Yeah.
Where it's actually interacting with you. It's not just some, screensaver.
Right.
I don't know why I chose screensaver, but yeah. I think with residual, see, it's tough because
are you talking about like residual lovemaking sessions?
Yeah, like okay, say if you're making love, in the same room, not the same bed because that's weird.
But if it is the same bed, then it's like extra threesome.
That's like a quadsome.
Here's my theory. If a ghost is participating in the lovemaking, then yes. If it's just in the room, then no. Whether it was consensual or not is another matter. But here's the thing. Usually ghosts need to focus their energy to do stuff, right? The more powerful ghosts, the more shit they can do.
Allegedly,
Can you imagine being a lesser ghost and you have to focus all of your energy just to stick your finger in someone's butt?
Hold on.
And that's what you do?
On. I say I'm focusing my energy. I don't have time for like a lot of foreplay.
Oh, you know what?
So it needs to be kind of an agreed upon thing where I go there, I do the business, or they do the business to me, and then it's over. And then I go back to wailing at night, you know? I wail really hard that one night, and then I go back to doing it.
Ew.
I hate the fact that ghosts wail. That wailing is very weak. I don't know why. Like, that's the kind of crying you do in your car. You don't let anybody see.
Right.
God, I would be so embarrassed if my ghost is known for like the ugly cry I do. Speaking of lovemaking with ghosts.
Right. That's a good transition. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about all of the loves that we will ghost on Tinder.
Cinderella?
Would you mind if I spread Nutella on her butt and ate it?
Oh God, this one is okay. So I have Brad. He is in his 30s. This is Brad's bio. Felon, married twice, 5 kids, multiple BMs.
Bowel movements?
Oh, baby mamas. I just got that. Drinking problem, prone to violence, does not like other people's children, can't leave the state for 3 more years. Don't ask. Can never leave the country. Definitely don't ask. 6 foot. Enjoys movies and long walks on the beach. Kittens.
Okay, I think, I aside from those last 2 lines, I think that was written by his parole officer. Because those all sounded like stipulations. Mm-hmm. I think it's noble to be that forward.
I think so too.
At the same time, though, what's your main goal here?
5 kids. Multiple baby mamas. Married twice. Felon, and he's very low 30s. Brad, what the fuck did you do in your 20s?
He was committing felonies and he was making love. When he says multiple baby mamas, do you think he means, well, he can't mean over 5 because he only has 5 children.
Yeah, minimum 2. Well, there has to be at least 2. At most 5.
Wow.
Enjoys movies and long walks on the beach.
That's so bold and confident. What gets me, though, is the fact that he says, I have 5 kids, and then he says, I don't like other people's kids.
Right.
It's like, you only have other people's kids. What are you talking about?
Right.
He's been through 2 divorces.
Yeah.
Not just 2 marriages. That's 2 divorces as well.
Maybe he's still married. Married twice. It didn't say divorced twice.
I didn't think about that. I did not think about that.
Yeah.
I really want to learn more about this guy.
I don't. Brad, you can stay away.
This is Jeanette. Let's call her Jeanette. She is mid-20s. Mm-hmm. She's very... I don't even know what you would call that. Well, I'll let her do the talking. I like hockey and hockey players.
Ooh.
I dislike birds and mornings.
Yeah, she sounds awful. How do you dislike birds and mornings?
Well, they kind of go together.
It's like sunshine and happiness.
Mornings must be extra terrible because the birds are chirping.
Morning's like the best time of day.
I mean, like, if you're not a morning person?
Think summertime weekends. When you first wake up and it's bright outside and you hear the birds chirping and stuff, fuck yeah.
Summertime weekends, I'm waking up at 12:45. Birds aren't chirping. The birds have already died. Birds are like flies, right?
No.
It's like 24 hours. They kind of plant eggs and they die.
No.
No? Well, anyways, that's Jeanette. We're probably way behind on time, so I think we should just jump into our main segment, which is on the Warrens.
If that name doesn't ring a bell for you, Lorraine and Ed Warren were very famous paranormal investigators. They have inspired a lot of different movies like Annabelle and Amityville Horror based on their cases that they have investigated.
Yeah, and most recently they've been portrayed in the Conjuring series, which is pretty good.
So Jeremy, you actually suggested this because Lorraine Warren has just passed away.
A very long storied life, and we're going to talk about some of it this week, so let's get to it.
Sharing their curiosity to know the unknown, their tension, their readiness for inconceivable adventure.
Is it human or inhuman? Earthly or unearthly?
I'm not going to go before the public and start talking about a werewolf.
The devil is in me. When the devil is in me, I am strong. I'm going to kill you.
Give us a sign that you want to communicate with us.
We prefer to be known simply as Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Unbelievable, fantastic, but I tell you it could happen.
Auntie Ganesh, A poem by Hugh Mearns. Yesterday, upon the stair, I met a man who wasn't there. He wasn't there again today. I wish he'd go away. When I came home last night at 3, the man was waiting there for me. But when I looked around the hall, I couldn't see him there at all. Go away. Go away. Don't you come back anymore. Go away, and please don't slam the door. Last night I saw, upon the stair, a little man who wasn't there. He wasn't there again today. Oh, how I wish he'd go away.
For a little background, Edward Warren was a World War II Navy veteran and a former police officer. He would later become a self-taught demonologist, author, and lecturer, because that goes great together. Lorraine was a psychic and clairvoyant, and she was also a light trance medium who worked closely with her husband. So together, they founded the New England Society for Psychic Research, or NESPR. This group got together a bunch of like-minded people in a lot of different professions. So doctors, researchers, police officers, nurses, and even like college students were all members of this group, and they would help in these different investigations when Ed or Lorraine needed help. They also trained several demonologists because they were also demonologists themselves.
From what I gathered, Ed was the root
demonologist guy.
The root, yeah. He was the main demonologist, but Lorraine was the one with the
psychic powers.
The powers. Like, she was a clairvoyant. And just background, for those of you who don't know what clairvoyant is.
Yeah.
The word is French for one who sees clearly, which is kind of confusing because it's not really that at all. But
yeah.
So clairvoyance is the alleged ability to gain info about an object, person, location, or physical event through extrasensory perception, also known as ESP. You might have heard that somewhere, which is reception of info gained or sensed in the mind. So essentially, she could look at you or touch your arm, or she could pick up a globe. Let's say a globe.
Yeah.
And she could feel the history of that globe, and she could say, oh, someone once held this globe when they were very upset, or someone once really liked this globe. I don't know why the fuck I picked globe, but like, so many cool objects. A globe.
Right.
A snow globe, of course. So yeah, so she could do that.
Yeah.
She only worked with globes.
So yeah, she was the more psychic area, where Ed, I guess, was the brains. Together, they authored a bunch of books about the paranormal, and about their private investigations, which they documented through their encounters. They claim to have investigated over 10,000 cases during their career. Other sources say it's in the hundreds.
Yeah.
But they did make that claim, so I'm telling you about it. I would also like to throw in that they also ran an occult museum in the back of their house that they had in Connecticut for quite a while. I think it might still be up and going.
It probably is. I think, because I know right now NESPR was ran mainly by the Warrens, but as they got older, their son-in-law started to run it. Did you read anything about him?
No, not their son-in-law.
He's a trip. So NESPR is currently managed by Ed and Lorraine's son-in-law, Tony Spera. What I find interesting is NESPR may have inadvertently spawned what's called NES, the New England Skeptical Society. Which to me is like, this is the funniest thing. So NES is a nonprofit educational organization founded in 1996 to promote science and reason. Its current president is Dr. Stephen Novella, who's an academic neurologist at Yale. He founded it with his friend Perry DeAngelis. NES has a president, a vice president, an executive director, director of marketing, and a web manager. But like in comparison, NESPR has Tony. It's like just Tony Spera running a Facebook page. So Perry and Steve actually investigated the Warrens, where they, interviewed them, and they went to their museum of demonic objects.
We had the occult.
Yes, the occult. They found that Ed and Lorraine Warren were very nice people, but they found that their methodology and evidence were ultimately unconvincing. They felt that the Warrens believed totally what they were claiming, but it was mainly influenced by bias because they were so into their faith.
They couldn't see their own bias.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because they were very devout Roman Catholics. They ruled altogether that the Warrens were, quote, at the best, tellers of meaningless ghost stories, and at worst, dangerous frauds, which I feel like gives a pretty stable view on what all skeptic minds kind of view the Warrens as.
Yeah. So you probably have heard of the Warrens through some of their popular movies, mainly so The Conjuring. I'm just going to briefly explain the plots of these movies. So light spoiler alerts. I'm not going to spoil the whole movie, but just kind of give you an idea of the cases that they worked on. Cases that later turned into movie adaptations.
Do you know how close the movies were to the actual events? Because I didn't look into much of their specific cases.
Well, their actual events were probably not very accurate to begin with. So I'm sure it was like a very minor thing that they traumatized to make money, and then they further dramatized in the movie.
And traumatized audiences.
So The Conjuring, which is arguably maybe the most famous, where the Warrens are involved. It revolves around a family who moves to Rhode Island in 1970 to escape city life. The home, however, has seen generations of suicides and murders. And that's kind of like the premise initially of the movie.
That was a good movie. Did you see the first one? I know we saw the second one together in theaters.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, that was
the second one wasn't good. First one I actually thought was good.
It was really good, I think.
Yeah. So at first the spirits there were friendly and helpful. They would help with chores and play with the children. However, as it got on, eventually the evil spirits made their presence known. And they would do this by banging doors, levitating furniture, and eventually assaulting the family as well, as evil spirits do. Mm-hmm. The worst spirit was, I'm going to pronounce this horribly, Bathsheba Sherman. She was a witch and Satanist. And the story goes that she hung herself on a tree in the 19th century. She warned the mother by sitting on her bed and yelling at her, get out, I'll drive you out with death and gloom. So that's just very witchy. The hauntings worsened, especially with Bathsheba, until the family were forced to leave and just completely abandoned it. And they weren't able, like in the movie, I'm pretty sure they had like priests come in and cleanse the house, but that never actually happened. They just had to completely abandon it. I think they did end up like foreclosing or selling.
Okay.
Because the family that entered the house afterwards also reported really strange events, and they eventually ended up leaving too, I think.
Oh, so the house was eventually sold. So they had to put on the market.
Yeah, somebody else ended up getting the house.
That's weird, because in the movie, they really make it seem like the Warrens made everything okay.
Yeah. The Warrens just like basically show up, document it, and they're like, all right, I'm going to go make this a book. See ya.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Right. I'll get you in touch with a priest, maybe.
Okay, that's interesting.
So another really big one was the Amityville Horror.
Yeah.
In 1974, Ronald DeFeo Jr. shot and killed 6 members of his family, including his parents and siblings. George and Kathy Lutz and their 3 children moved into the house. After 28 days, they left the house claiming to have been terrorized by ghosts. So essentially this man was like driven mad, killed his entire family. The people that came in afterwards were terrorized by his spirits in various ways.
Yeah, it's a pretty prolific.
It's really dark.
The story itself is definitely worth checking into.
Yeah. Another big one is the haunting in Connecticut. Keep in mind that all of these are in Connecticut, where they live.
Yeah.
I guess either Connecticut's a very haunted place, or there might be some storytelling.
Okay, well, let's look at it from a believer standpoint first.
Yeah.
Connecticut and New England in general, and also there's the Conjuring was in Rhode Island. In terms of European settlers, New England is like really the oldest place in America as far as America goes.
Right.
So that's where our ghosts come from, like our oldest ghosts.
I guess, yeah.
So you could look at it from that perspective. And also, they lived in Connecticut. So of course,
right.
maybe
what else are they going to do?
Yeah. Well, you're going to go to Texas? No, they don't. See how pale they were? No way. Ed's coloring was horrendous. He really looks sick though.
A haunting in Connecticut is about a family in 1986 who moved into a house in Connecticut to be closer to a hospital that was treating their sick son. The house used to be a funeral home with a mortuary still in the basement and a graveyard outside.
Oh my God, why would you buy that?
Exactly.
Serves them right.
So eventually they started having different occurrences. I think it was like a month later. The water would turn red, lights would flicker, dishes would move on their own, and the ghosts would make some appearances, really spooking some people out, Here's where it goes, though. You go from ghosts making appearances to a child being spun around by invisible forces and finding toe tags.
Toe tags?
Yeah, like from dead bodies.
Where'd they find them?
Well,
it was a mortuary.
It was a mortuary at one point.
So they probably found them in the mortuary.
It was a funeral home.
You're telling me they found toe tags off of corpses in a house that used to house a lot of corpses?
Yes.
This is spooky. This is out of left field.
I feel like you're completely grazing over the kid being spun around by invisible forces.
Okay, that sounds fun. I don't understand.
I'm just imagining the ghost making an appearance, and he's just like spinning the boy in a dance. Gives him a rose out of his mouth.
It's romantic. Mom and Dad just don't understand. They're calling the Exorcist people.
The last one I'll talk about before I jump into a really in-depth case is Annabelle. The case dates back to 1970, so fairly recent, and it was about a spirit that inhabited a Raggedy Ann doll. It was purchased from an antique store by a woman to give to her daughter. Supposedly, the daughter didn't really care about the doll and immediately threw it on her bed and forgot about it. So the haunting started. Shortly after that, the doll supposedly was upset and would change positions on its own. So I guess a fuck you for not playing with me, I'm going to play with myself and move around.
That's what I do. I always play with myself and move around.
But it actually, I don't know, I'm saying actually. Of course it did. It escalated.
Believe it or not, there's some demonic stuff happened.
I'm in presentation mode. Actually, you would be impressed by my results. It escalated to the doll leaving notes around the house with messages saying, "Help me" and "Help Lou."
Who's Lou?
One of them.
One of who?
One of the ghosts.
Oh, okay.
One night they came home to find the doll covered in blood. After that, they were very concerned. And they're like, we're going to call the Warrens to come investigate this weird-ass doll.
Yeah.
So they do. They found that inhabiting the doll was a 7-year-old girl who was murdered and left in a field to rot. She felt comfortable in the house and wanted to be loved and be a part of the family. Naturally, the mom and the daughter were like, yeah, of course, you're a little girl spirit. I want to help.
White people.
Right, so they do. The mother and daughter agreed to let her be a part of the little family. However, surprise, Annabelle was really a demon the whole time.
Oh, man.
And I'm going to leave it on a cliffhanger, so you got to go watch the movie.
Ed Warren fucks the doll.
Ed Warren fucks the 7-year-old spirit doll.
yeah, that's what happened.
So I'm going to jump into just straight nosedive, full depth, all detail.
Smash your face in the pavement.
Of one of their also more popular cases. I don't believe this was made into a movie that I am aware of. It's called The Devil in Connecticut.
I heard that this case is going to be the plot for The Conjuring 3.
Oh, really?
It was just recently announced.
Oh, okay. I'm going to ruin it all for you before you watch it. So the story revolves around the trial of Arn Cheyenne Johnson.
Is that a man or a woman?
It's a man.
Okay.
I know. I was confused as well. Also known as the Devil Made Me Do It case.
Okay.
It was the first known court case in the United States that the defense sought to prove innocence based on the defendant's claim of demonic possession and denial of personal responsibility for the crime. So it was the very first trial in which case someone claimed demonic possession made them murder somebody, essentially.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so...
I'm surprised it's the first.
Yeah.
I think someone would have thought of that before.
Right. But,
it's the devil, maybe.
Right, but yeah, they were the first ones.
Yeah.
So essentially, how we got to this point, the Gladsdale family arrived in a rental property they had gotten in Connecticut. Shortly afterwards, a lot of bizarre events occurred, as they do.
The Warrens only show up if weird stuff happens.
Right. So about a month after they arrived, the youngest son, 11-year-old David, suddenly fell down forcibly.
He was pushed.
Yeah.
I mean, I fell down forcibly. You mean you got pushed? Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so 11-year-old David was suddenly pushed onto a bed like he'd been shoved.
Oh.
Pushed like he'd been shoved.
Oh, man, I tripped like I've been fell.
I cannot explain this correctly. I wrote it really odd. So
you wrote it like you drew letters.
11-year-old David was shoved onto the bed. So David was like, what the, hey.
What the crud?
What's going on here? I was just pushed. And everyone's like, whatever, you're 11. You're dumb. So David told his mom, like, hey, I was pushed by a man with, quote, burnt-looking skin, unquote, who'd pointed a finger at him and growled the word beware before throwing him onto the bed.
Huh.
So after this incident happened, about a month in, he started to wake up at all hours of the night, sobbing uncontrollably.
What's the name of the family again?
Gladsdale.
How many members are there?
I know there's a daughter, there's David, and there's another brother, at least.
So there's two boys and a girl.
There might be more. I don't know. But they're the main focal points.
Hypothetically, there's 3 kids.
At least 3. Maybe more, but they're not mentioned.
How many kids do you have? At least 3. I like it. Mystery.
I just focus on the important bits.
Yeah.
I don't care about the useless children.
I got you.
So at this point, he begins waking up at all hours of the night, sobbing uncontrollably. He said he's being visited by a old man in the dark with soulless black eyes, animalistic features, sharp jagged teeth, pointed ears, and hooves.
God, that's the devil.
Yeah.
Oh my God, wait. Is he going to make him do something?
Don't spoil it.
Oh.
I'm going to spoil it for you.
Yeah. You've already spoiled it. We know it's a murder case.
So yeah, David's waking up sobbing because obviously he sees the fucking devil. And
now, is this the same as the burnt man or different entities? Do you know?
I'm assuming different, but yeah, it doesn't specify. So he's getting them more and more frequently until he's getting them every night, and now all of a sudden he's getting them also in the daytime too.
Oh God!
Where he's being visited by this hooved Satan man.
7 daymares.
So when they start happening in the daytime, the demon would take on the appearance of an old man with a white beard, dressed in a flannel shirt and jeans.
Kind of stylish.
Yeah, kind of stylish, kind of lesbianish.
I was going to say, just like a lesbian. Okay.
Yeah. He said the entity, when it appeared, would snarl in foreign languages and threaten to steal his soul. Soon, these appearances came with footsteps, slamming doors, and disembodied voices.
Okay.
So David then began getting scratches, cuts, and bruises on his body for apparently no reason. The night terrors worsened every night, and it escalated to the point where he was being choked by this demon entity. Keep in mind, he's an 11-year-old kid, so he's probably like...
He probably deserved it.
He's probably like in 5th grade-ish, if that puts it in perspective. Within this point of time, and it's a very short amount of time, it's like a few months, he puts on weight from all the stress, and he gains 60 pounds.
Oh my.
Until he's like an obese child.
Very obese.
Very obese.
For a 11-year-old? How old is he?
Yeah, he's 11. So 60 pounds and 11-year-old is,
you should be like,
it's like double your body weight.
Right, yeah.
The parents became very concerned because he was having all these nightly terrors and like daytime appearances of the devil and this lesbian in a flannel.
Yeah.
And the church, at the mention of LGBTQ, was like, fuck.
We can't help you. I'm so sorry.
So they recruited a priest to cleanse the house. Luckily, it did absolutely nothing. So we get more of a juicy story.
Oh, man.
So then the church referred them to the Warrens. So that's where they make their timely presence. Actually, the Warrens caused the state of David to worsen.
Oh, God.
If you can believe it.
Yeah.
All of a sudden they show up and David starts having seizures, and he will suddenly start quoting passages from the Bible and speaking Latin.
Oh, you know for a fact Ed Warren's like, stand back, Lorraine. This is my thing.
I got this.
I'm a demonologist.
Well,
I've written books.
Lorraine claimed to have seen a black mist surrounding the child.
I'll get into that a little bit later, but a big thing she sees is auras around people.
Yeah.
She sees that more often than actual ghosts. She sees just energy.
Yeah.
And so black...
That's bad.
That's probably not good.
Bad. Black mist and hooves equals bad news.
Ed Warren's like, oh my God, I can't wait to go to work today.
So around this time, when David's really bad, they got the Warrens and the priest. The older daughter, Deborah, begged her fiance, Arn, Cheyenne Johnson, to move in to make her feel safe. Being a nice, loving boyfriend, he complied, and he was around while David was getting multiple exorcisms. 3 were performed with no less than 4 Catholic priests present.
At each exorcism?
At each exorcism.
So it was like teamwork.
It was like a big job.
Wow.
They needed at least 4.
So Arn moves in. I'm going to guess. He probably stood too close during the exorcism. He was in the splash zone. Jumped onto him.
I'll get to it.
Tell me.
During these exorcisms, as one does when you're possessed, he would growl, snarl, curse, spit, kick, and scratch like a madman.
That was just Ed Warren.
Yeah. I love demons.
Fuck, I love it. Oh, my God.
He would also stop breathing for long periods of time, levitate, and contort his body into unnatural positions.
And for a fat kid, like, imagine that.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty impressive to even bend down and tie your shoes as a 180-pound kid. That's pretty insane.
That's probably why he stopped breathing for long periods. His heart gave out.
He laid on his back too long.
He eventually began to talk of murder and stabbing.
Okay.
According to the Warrens, he supposedly had 43 demons possessing him.
Wow.
When asked to give the name, like asking the demons to give their name, he listed off 43.
Ed Warren was like, by the way, we charge by the demon, so...
But they nicknamed this the Beast or the Master.
Okay. Also, all 43 names were one entity?
Yeah, it was nicknamed the Beast. It was like the grouping of 43 demons, all possessing this 11-year-old obese child.
Yeah, like why him, of all people? You know?
He's the weakest, I guess, easiest to possess.
Yeah.
Usually that's the women, but I guess the 11-year-olds.
Yeah. Fat kids are right below women in terms of easily possessible.
So the exorcisms had no effect on David, and Arn got really tired of all these exorcisms and this whole like scenario happening.
Right.
So he began shouting and yelling at David and the demons to get out of him, leave him alone. You know, I'll take care of you. Just like come enter me.
Yeah.
And during one of these times,
what an idiot! Why would that's so stupid?
Yeah.
Such a man.
Yeah. During one of these times, he became terrified when he claimed to have seen the demons and made eye contact with them within David. Like, he looked David in the eyes and saw the demons staring back at him.
He was like, that's not David.
Yeah, and the Warrens were like, yeah, we kind of told you not to do this.
Yeah.
Dumbo.
Ed Warren's just freaking out. He's like, guys, I'm going to have to raise my rates.
Right, and they're like, we told you not to do this, so that's on you, buddy. So not long afterwards, Arn crashed his car into a tree. While he was unharmed, he claimed the demons had taken control of him and caused him to crash.
Was he drinking?
Doesn't say.
I bet he was drinking.
He might have been drinking. At this point, all the exorcisms hadn't worked. The Warrens are not really doing anything but like documenting this the whole time.
This seems what they do best, though. I mean, like throughout all of those stories that I've, skimmed through, seems like their main thing is to be there to like just analyze and document.
Right.
Which is kind of, it's interesting, but also they tend to watch a lot of families fall apart.
Yeah, it's kind of like
it's strange. It's peculiar.
Right. So at this point, the family is like, we've tried everything, so we're going to give him to a psychiatrist.
That wasn't the phrase. Okay.
Right. They just, here is my child. To a psychiatrist who said he was normal apart from a mild learning disability. They decided to enroll him in the school for disturbed children anyway, hoping it might cure him of whatever was wrong with him. They had no idea. Deborah, the daughter, and her fiancé Arn, who yelled at demons, moved into an apartment together, and they became pretty close friends with the landlord, Alan Bono. In the coming weeks, Arn became irritated at really small things, and he would go into these trances where he would growl, snarl, or convulse, which he would have no memory of upon waking up. During several of these episodes, he'd shout in despair that he could see the beast staring at him, but he would have no recollection of this after he came to afterwards. Arn, Debbie, and Bono had a lunch party one day, and they were all drinking very heavily. They get into a heated argument. During this time, Arn goes into one of his trances where he begins growling like an animal, and he pulls a 5-inch knife, and he proceeded to viciously and repeatedly stab Bono. Bono ended up dying at the hospital from his wounds a few hours later. Arn was charged with first-degree murder. A day after the murder, Lorraine made the claim that he'd been possessed and that David said he'd seen the demons go from him into his body.
She saw that?
Lorraine,
and she didn't say anything?
She did a day later.
A day too late?
Yeah, and David was like, yeah, I saw them leave me and go into him, I guess.
Well, you know what, guys? You really should have said that earlier. That really could have helped Boner.
Right, Boner.
From getting hurt.
When the trial actually came around, the church denied that any actual exorcisms were performed. The reason they said that was because the bishop supposedly never approved of the exorcisms.
Okay.
And that would have been required for them to be actual exorcisms, but none was sought. The family claimed that approval was granted, making the case even more confusing. The judge, with the defense being possession, was not convinced.
Really? What?
And said, hey, buddy, how about you try something else? Because I'm going to tell you right now, this shit ain't going to work.
Right.
You're going to have to come up with something else pronto. Arn's like, I guess I'll just go for self-defense. And the jury was like, guilty. Considering he was not attacking you and you just grabbed a knife and stabbed him.
Yeah.
So he was sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison, but only ended up serving 5. Because he was a good boy. But the story doesn't end there.
What?
Yeah. In 1983, the Warrens wrote the book, The Devil in Connecticut, which many saw as a cheap attempt to make money off the family's distress, which you'll kind of see in a lot of these stories. But the book was then re-released in 2006. David, who is now an adult, and his brother sued the publisher. They claimed that the book gave them emotional distress by talking about their, at that age, trauma.
Okay, yeah, so stirring that back up.
And that it contained libel as well. So the Warrens, after, the lawsuit, stuck to the original version of their events. And Debbie and Arn actually stuck with it too. They stuck with the Warrens version.
Okay.
I'm assuming to make him look better and that he didn't just randomly stab a guy.
Yeah, probably.
That's what I'm going to go for. The priests, unfortunately, stayed silent and have not contributed any information to either side.
Okay.
And that's kind of where we leave off on the story of a devil in Connecticut.
I think that story is a really good example of the ambiguity of the Warrens, Mm-hmm. Were they doing what they did for good? Did they believe in what they were doing? And is there any validity to anything they say?
Yeah.
Because I 100% believe that they believe what they're saying.
Right.
I don't think they're intentionally acting fraudulent.
Right.
I think they really do believe, which is
so odd.
Now, there's something about Lorraine that I do sort of believe.
Yeah.
She speaks with such conviction, and there's something about Ed, for example, that I think felt
like slimy.
It felt kind of slimy for sure.
Yeah.
Kind of like a showman.
Mm-hmm.
And someone who maybe, I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but I've already spoken ill of many deads. So I'll just say it. There's something about Ed that felt like he may have been taking advantage of Lorraine a little bit.
Yeah.
Because
maybe she was clairvoyant and psychic, and he just kind of like,
he was like,
what else do you see? We can really use this.
We could really write a book about this and stuff.
Right.
Because he would just pump out. He was the one writing the books. He would just pump them out like crazy. Now, I don't know how anecdotal this is. I only found this on a few different sites, but I guess after returning from World War II, Ed took up painting. Lorraine later joined him in that hobby. And in the early days, the Warrens would paint artwork of the haunted homes they had an interest in investigating, and they would gift that painting to the homeowners and be like, hey, here's a painting. Can we investigate your house for ghosts? And they'd be like, yeah, sure, it's a nice painting. Thank you. You can look online, and there's a bunch of old landscape portraits, of homes that Ed Warren painted, and they're pretty okay looking.
Okay.
And that was all pre-Nesper. That was before they
what
made
doesn't
anything.
he do?
I know. He's one of those guys, though, where it's like he's trying to make money wherever he can.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to tell you a little bit about specifically Lorraine, because she is the one that just passed away.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, she was born on January 31st, 1927, and she died just recently, April 18th, 2019. She was 92 years young. As a child, Lorraine attended Laurelton Hall, which was an all-girl Catholic school. When she was 9, she noticed she could see lights around people's heads, always around the head.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like what nowadays people call auras.
Mm-hmm.
And she actually got in trouble one time because she told this, I think it was a French teacher, that her lights were brighter than Mother Superior. And that got her in trouble with Mother Superior, because you can't have lights brighter than the Mother Superior.
Right.
And so then that sort of made her scared to talk about it. And she started to suppress it and hide it, but she would always feel it. She said that she still would see it all the time, and what, like, good people, the lights are very soft pastel colors, like pinks and blues. Bad people had, like, blacks, cloudy, scary, sick-looking auras. Most living things had these lights. She said she notices it especially with animals and even some trees. She said it got to the point where she felt sick if she ever saw a tree getting cut down. She just became like a huge animal lover. And actually in the interview, it's kind of cute. She was talking about how she really wanted to go on safari and see like the jungle cats and stuff. Because she's like, I would love to see what their colors look like, what their lights are. If you really listen to her describe it, it feels incredibly genuine.
I wonder if she has that condition where you see lights with like emotions and stuff. Like when
synesthesia?
When the people like hear music, they see colors.
Yes, yeah.
And things. I wonder if it's something like that.
Something similar to that. Yeah, I wonder.
That'd be interesting.
There's definitely some explanation to it. I think it's maybe like
some variant of that.
Yeah.
Or like emotional attachment, I guess, to objects and things.
Right.
Have
like
colors.
Whatever emotions they made her feel, she would see as colors. So she kept on suppressing her abilities. She just sort of focused on family, church, and her studies. She didn't really think about boys at all. Until she met Ed.
Ooh.
And I gotta say,
Honka
chunka. He is a chunk. I don't talk highly of Ed, but I do think their little story, if you choose to view it through a lens of Lorraine's telling the truth, is like really an endearing story. So Lorraine is a very, to herself kind of girl. And then her friends, some girls from her school, say, hey, let's go to this theater. So Lorraine's schoolmates and her friends took her to the Colonial Theater in Bridgeport, Connecticut. And this is where Ed worked. And they took her there with the intent of introducing her to Ed.
Oh,
And he was the usher at the theater, so he helped them to their seats. But during the show, there was an air raid. This was around the time that World War II was ramping up. Connecticut manufactured 80% of the Allied front ball bearings, which were these components that were used in everything from guns to planes. And Bridgeport, where the theater was really significant in producing troop supplies. So it would make sense for them to practice air raids around that area. To them, the air raids had been going on for a little bit, and so they weren't that worried about it. So Ed says, hey, let's go to the soda fountain, and I'll buy everybody a Coke. So then they sort of walked home from the soda fountain, and they eventually came upon Ed's house. Ed said goodbye, and he headed up the front steps to his house, and he said, it was nice to meet you, Lorraine. And he walked away, and Lorraine said, and this was in an interview in 2012, after he went up the steps, she said, quote, and I didn't see that young, athletic, 142-pound boy. I see my husband, as he looked just before he passed. And I wrote in my diary, I'll spend the rest of my life with him.
Aww.
Ed would enlist and enter the Navy on his 17th birthday. He was on a ship that crossed the Atlantic Ocean several times. It was really dangerous territory because that's where a lot of German subs were. Ed was one of the 65 men who survived this really bad incident where 2 ships sank in the North Atlantic.
Ooh.
But while on this thing called survivor's leave, Ed returned to Bridgeport and he married Lorraine. They had 2 days. And Ed talked to a parish and the priest said, I'm going to try to get you some extra days with your wife.
Oh.
And in that time, Lorraine got pregnant.
Damn, they must have been really getting at it. Huh?
I think he's got a demon in him. Rest in peace. So that's their story.
That's a nice one.
It's kind of a cute one,
it is
right?
cute.
Yeah.
They should make a story about it. Conjuring 3.
Conjuring 3, the love story. I covered the Warren case known as the Werewolf of Southend.
That sounds like a Goosebumps.
It pretty much is a Goosebumps story, I would argue. So let's do the who, what, where, when, why, how.
Werewolf in the Swamp. Is that what one's called? Swamp Werewolf?
I mean, probably. There's like 87 Goosebumps books. Frankenstein ate my homework. Oh, R.L. Stein, you've done it again.
Right.
This story concerns, this takes place in England. It concerns a man by the name of William Ramsey, but we'll call him Bill. And he lived in a place called Southend-on-Sea. It's also just called Southend. It's a bizarre story considered to be one of the most perplexing cases of demonic possession in modern times. Now, this is very similar to your case, in all honesty. But this is a lot more werewolfy. Listening to your story, I was thinking, this doesn't have enough werewolf in it.
And here you are.
This has so much werewolf in it.
I'm confused on how.
Oh, you're going to find out how. So, the first incident of Bill being a werewolf. So when Bill was a young boy, about 9 years old, he was playing in his backyard when he felt a cold spell wash over him and he smelled a foul stench, like rotting meat, not poop. Because my first thought was the kid shit his pants.
Right.
He's just like, oh, I'm a werewolf. On top of the coldness and the smell, he also started to shiver and get sweaty. Got some cold sweats going on. If you're saying, like, that's kind of a weird thing to even consider relevant, here's Bill on the topic. Quote, I was playing and my body temperature was normal. Then, well, I'd say it felt as if my body temperature dropped a good 20 degrees. Sweat froze on me and my whole body started shaking. And there was this odor, very foul. You're probably thinking, Jeremy, that's exactly what you just said before. Well, this time, Bill said it. So, this sensation shortly passed, but Bill felt an unnerving change. He became hyper aware of his environment. Keep in mind, this is a 9-year-old boy. And he got very anxious and tense.
Right, and all of a sudden, he looked at his hands, but instead of hands, they were paws.
And then R.L. Stein stepped in and said, I'll finish the story. Thank you very much.
Right.
So, Bill began to get these mental images of wolves. Again, this is Southend by Sea. It's right by the shore. All he can think of is these wolves and then like running to the sea on all fours. It's like this urge he gets. Before he can run on all fours to the sea like a deranged boy, he is overcome with an intense rage. And he starts howling and growling. And Bill's parents respond to the growl by rushing outside and they're like, Bill, what's the matter? And Bill is going berserk. Bill is 9. Remember that now.
Yeah.
Bill runs to the fence in the yard. He rips out the fence post from the ground. By the way, the fence is held in by concrete and rebar. He lifts it from the ground and starts swinging it around his head. And his dad's saying, son, put the fence down. Bill doesn't stop swinging it around. The dad runs inside. The parents lock the door and they just wait. They watch through a window and they see that Bill is also tearing through the wire mesh on the fence, viciously chewing on it where his mouth is bleeding. Eventually, the rage fades away. And little Bill kind of saunters inside, and the family, in true British fashion,
they're like, oh, let's ignore this.
Yeah, they just eat dinner and they never talk about it. Bill's mom would later state that Bill was never quite the same after that. However, Bill went on to have a fairly normal childhood and no severe outburst for a long time. Now, it does come back. Bill grew up, got married, had kids, and 2 years into his marriage to his wife, he started to suffer from these nightmares. And he'd always wake up all sweaty and growling. Mm-hmm. And according to some sources, the nightmares followed a similar path. So he would be dreaming that he's walking down this road with his wife, behind his wife, and she would turn around, look at him, and just like scream bloody murder and run off. And this occurred somewhere around 1967. And then the nightmare stopped and life carried on as it does. 15 years fly by without any incidents. Then one night in 1983, Bill goes out to a pub with some friends. He drinks. But during the night, he gets that familiar chill from when he was a boy. And he smells that smell, and he gets kind of nauseous, and he excuses himself to the bathroom. He kind of has like a breakdown in a bathroom stall. And when he goes out to, I assume if this was a movie, he probably goes to the sink to splash some water in his face. And when he looks in the mirror, he sees like a wolf, essentially, like him, but in wolf form. And he freaks out. And his friends are like, okay, don't worry, we'll drive you home. Everything's okay. On the drive home, there's one of his friends sitting next to him, and Bill just lunges towards the friend's leg and starts biting it. And the friend freaks out. Everyone in the car freaks out. They pull over. It takes 3 of them to rip him off his friend. And Bill just eventually calms down, and he's fine. Probably didn't talk to the friends much after that, I would imagine.
Right.
So it's like, okay, this guy's actually psychotic. Every time this happens, he has very little memory of what transpired. So let's go forward to, that was what, 83? So Christmas of 83. Just before Christmas, Bill began to pour sweat, just sweated incessantly and had really bad chest pains. So because of the chest pains, a family member drove him to the hospital. And he started to get the chill again once he got to the ER. And he's like, oh, shit, it's gonna happen again.
It's going to wolf up.
Yep. Uh-oh, I'm going ghost. So during a blood test, Bill bit a nurse's arm, very severely apparently. And then he began to run around the ER growling, and he would just throw people that tried to hold him back. Just throw other grown men across the ER room.
Can you imagine how, like, chaotic that must have been?
Because it's already an ER.
Having to deal with some man growling.
Yeah, like biting people.
Yeah.
And people described him as having just insanely wild eyes. I think we both know, like, eyewitness reports are always fucked.
Yeah.
But people said, like, he looked like he had claws. His teeth looked sharper than usual. He was snarling. And then an on-duty police officer managed to wrestle him into handcuffs, and doctors sedated him. And they had to use enough sedatives for, like, multiple men because he was just insane. He's sedated, wakes up in a mental institution called Runwell Mental Hospital in nearby Chelmsford District in Essex. And when Bill came to, he had very little memory of what happened at the hospital. He declined further treatment at the psych ward, and they just released him. They're like, you know what? It's 1983. Get out of here. Right. So weeks later, January 1984, the New Year's, come and passed. Bill was driving home after visiting his mother when he felt the typical werewolf symptoms come on. So he rushed himself to the hospital. Happens to be the same hospital he was at before. And he's like, hey guys, I'm about to go
wolf.
I'm about to go wolf. When he got to the ER, he was already too far gone, and this nurse tried to calm him down and said, you got to wait. You can't see a doctor yet. And so Bill essentially chokeslammed this nurse to the ground.
Oh, no.
And then another orderly came up and was like, hey, you better calm down. And so he immediately attacks him and starts to strangle him. Several police officers arrived and surrounded him. There was like a standoff for a while, as it's described. And finally, one officer had the cojones to be like, all right, I'm just going to go for him and try to apprehend him. And Bill attacked and injured that police officer. And apparently he injured him so badly that police officer had to stay in that hospital for 4 days afterwards.
Damn.
It took a remaining 4 officers to handcuff him and put him in a squad car. He was then taken to the mental hospital again. He had a short stay and eventually was released. So July 22nd, 1987, Bill picks up a prostitute.
As one does.
I don't know if he's still married at this point. Maybe it doesn't matter. I'm not sure what his moral status is, let alone his marital status. Driving around late at night, picks up a prostitute. Plot twist, it's a citizen's arrest. He goes, I'm going to take you to the police. I don't know why.
He's taking the prostitute to the police?
Yeah. Picks her up and says, I'm going to take you to the police. So Bill starts to feel uneasy as he drives to the police station, and he starts to growl, and the prostitute gets very nervous, and Bill continues to growl, and so the sex worker just books her out of the car and runs towards the police station, towards a police officer. So Bill gets out of the car and chases her. He's entering wolf mode once again. An officer that's outside shows up. Bill just randomly diverts his path from the prostitute towards the cop, and he attacks the officer. But this officer that he attacked was significantly larger than him, over 6 feet tall, 196 pounds. So Bill picks off this 6 foot tall, 196 pound man by the throat and throws him what's described as a great distance, whatever that means, in the parking lot of the police station. Just chucks him across the parking lot.
Across the parking lot?
Yes.
Like a parking lot?
Not like a mall parking lot, but like, a small little, more than 5 feet away from him. And this officer's name is Sergeant Terry Fisher. And in an interview I watched, Sergeant Fisher stated that Bill had, quote, large staring eyes and this maniacal expression. He then added, but the worst thing was what he was saying. And it was said in a very malevolent way.
You're fat and ugly.
He said, you were easy to throw. It destroyed him.
He stared at him with his wolf eyes and went, catch this, bitch.
And then he threw him to another werewolf, and they just played volleyball with his body. It was so demeaning. Bill was saying, the devil is in me. When the devil is in me, I am strong. I am going to kill you. I am strong. You are going to die. And it took 5 officers to subdue Bill, who was not under the influence of any drugs. Officers throw him in this cell. And the cell, this is really weird. It's like a steel door, and one side is padded.
Yeah.
And there's this little window. And I mean, the window's probably the size of your head. Bill bursts through this window on the door. He not only does he burst his head through, he gets one of his arms through too. I looked at the door that they showed that he burst out of. It's like almost physically impossible to do that. But yet they have multiple witnesses say that he did this. Every police officer in the station saw it. And then 4 firefighters that had to cut him out of the door. And Bill gets admitted to the psych hospital again. He goes through with some psychological evaluation. And the issue is they couldn't find a source or cause of the behavior. There's nothing wrong with him psychologically. But news of the werewolf business started to circulate in the media. And by the way, they try to paint the press as like villains for airing Bill's dirty laundry. But Bill actually sold his story for $20,000 to the newspaper. Shit. With inflation, that's like $40,000.
Hell yeah.
That's a lot. Like I would do the same thing.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyways, the media's like, hey, everybody, check out this freak show. And then the Warrens show up. Lorraine was certain that Bill was possessed demonically. And the Warrens end up tracking down Bill in England and convinced him to fly to the U.S. to take part in an exorcism. There's this old show called Sightings.
Okay.
Showcasing certain real-life occurrences that were kind of either paranormal or just kind of fringe. And they did an episode on him. So here's a clip from the show of Bill talking about when he was approached by the Warrens. And I think this is beautiful.
Warrens told me that it wasn't a mental illness. I had no mental illness. I was possessed, demonically possessed with a wolf spirit. Oh, God. Oh, I've heard it all. And he kind of closed the evening with, would you come to the USA and be exercised? Exercise? Come on. Some absolute rubbish they were giving me here. But maybe. I've been through all the other avenues, remember.
So the exorcism takes place on July 28th, 1989. Bill makes the travel out to Connecticut to undergo an exorcism with the Warrens present, as well as a trusted bishop, Bishop Robert McKenna, which I think is a close friend of the Warrens. He performs the exorcism. It occurs at a chapel called Our Lady of the Rosary. There were 6 bodyguards with stun guns on standby to protect the bishop while he did this. And Lorraine claims that Bill's neck muscles swelled and his ears began to point. And Bill was restrained to a chair. The Warrens captured photos detailing the ordeal. I gotta say, the photos are disturbing. After all of this, Bill left the exorcism feeling, in his own words, renewed, like a new man. And he never had another wolf episode since.
Damn.
So.
I guess he was possessed.
In conclusion,
he was possessed.
The exorcism obviously did help Bill. So I think.
If it helped him, cool.
Exactly. Yeah, I think as long as it doesn't like objectively harm anyone, then I think it's A-okay in my book, you know? Anyway, so this is our little tribute to Lorraine Warren.
We bashed your husband the whole time, but I hope you appreciated it.
Yeah.
At the very least, they helped some people.
Yeah, that's
we got some nice
that's
movies out of it. That's my good vibration for the week.
Yeah, and my good vibration, good vibrations. Birthdays. Birthday cake.
Oh yeah,
my
birthday
God.
cake for sure. That was a good birthday cake.
If any of you are feeling down, you can go to any market and buy a cheap cake. Like, cake is cheap.
It is cheap.
That's what you don't realize when you're a kid, when you don't have a car or any means to purchase any goods.
Yeah, cake is super cheap.
Cake is so cheap. That's incredible.
Hell yeah.
So if you're feeling down, go buy yourself a cake and have a good time.
And if you're feeling happy, still buy yourself a cake.
Yeah.
Why not? Treat yourself.
Treat yourself.
$3
once in a while.
$4 with taxes. There you go.
Yeah. Or just steal it.
It's $3. They're not going to hurt.
Yeah. You think that giant mega corporate company known as whatever Walmart is going to feel the loss of one cake? No way.
Maybe don't buy it from Walmart. Buy it from a Kroger at least.
A Kroger or a Meijer, or like
like Whole
if you're in
Foods
Florida, Winn-Dixie or Publix.
Yeah, one of your local mega
You're
markets.
from Florida originally, aren't you?
Yeah.
It's cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I also lived in Texas.
What?
Yeah.
When?
When I was a child.
Did you ever ride a horse? Drive a horse?
Yeah.
Okay. Were you
yeah, it almost kicked me in the head.
I would have sworn it did kick you in the head.
All right, well, if you guys would like to send us a viewer question like Kent, or if you have any topics you would like us to discuss or any comments on the show, feel free to email us at accordingtoanidiot@gmail.com. We also have a Facebook and an Instagram, According to an Idiot, or you can get a hold of us on Twitter at IdiotsAccord.
Leave us a review on iTunes if you have the time and energy and
the capacity.
And the
you
capacity,
dumbo.
You dummy.
Write us a little thingy if you want to. You don't have to. And if you didn't like it, then please don't let us know because we'll be upset.
Yeah.
Share it with us with your friends. We've been growing a little bit lately, and it's exciting. So
me and Kaylee both have our height has increased by 5 inches each. We don't know if the growth will continue. We are slightly worried. We haven't stopped growing.
Yeah. Mine has been solely in the clit.
Repulsive. All right, guys. I got to go. My chauffeur's waiting. See ya.
Have a good one. I love you guys.